Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Tuesday everybody. First up, we're going to be discussing two cities, actors in a grand plan of political theatre for General Secretary Xi Jinping this week. The first city is Shanghai. Over the weekend at Shanghai's Communist Party Congress, Shanghai's party secretary, the financial hub's highest local leader, declared victory in defending the city against COVID-19, describing the 2-month lockdown as, quote, completely correct, end quote. Despite the devastating economic and social costs of the lockdowns, Shanghai is being presented to the country as a glorious victory, and as such represents a political win for Xi and his zero-COVID policy. With the upcoming 20th Party Congress, this is very important messaging for Xi's leadership. We are seeing more easing in Shanghai in recent days too. The city announced on Sunday that resumption of dine-in services in a quote-unquote orderly manner in communities will start from Wednesday, as long as there are no medium-risk zones in the area and no new infections reported within the week. There are now no longer any official cases being discovered in the city, though now that a victory over the virus has been declared in the city, new cases would not be very politically correct. We remember that there are still outbreaks in other parts of the country, however. China's southern manufacturing powerhouse of Shenzhen has closed wholesale markets, cinemas and gyms in the central district bordering Hong Kong for 3 days to prevent wider spread of COVID-19. Hefei, the relatively poor provincial capital of Anhui, is now testing its 8 million residents after the discovery of one positive case, and Dandong, on the North Korean border, has put several districts under lockdown. The situation in the capital has improved, however. Beijing's primary and middle school students returned to campus yesterday, Monday, after over 50 days of remote education due to local COVID restrictions. Okay, the second city for this week's political theatre is Hong Kong. Multiple reports indicate that General Secretary Xi will be in Hong Kong on the 1st of July to mark the 25th anniversary of the handover, as well as the ascent of John Lee as the new chief executive of the Special Administrative Region. Again, this sends a strong domestic signal, and indeed a strong international message too, and if the trip proceeds without any issues, represents a big political win for Xi. Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post reports that Xi Jinping is expected to begin a 2-day visit to Hong Kong on Thursday this week, but will not stay overnight. Quote, thousands of police officers will be deployed to place an unprecedented security blanket around the West Kowloon high-speed railway terminus, where Xi and a delegation of mainland Chinese officials are expected to arrive from Shenzhen by train on Thursday afternoon. End quote. State media reports that the Hong Kong police force will perform, for the first time, People's Liberation Army-style foot drills, which state-run CGTN describes as, quote, a symbolic change in ideology, end quote. A change in ideology, indeed. Hey guys, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to the like button, it's a huge help. And for anyone who is liking what I'm doing here with the channel, what I'm trying to achieve with the channel, and wants to help keep it financially sustainable, Patreon link is in the description below. And if you just want to give a one-off tip, buy me a coffee is there as well. Thank you so much everybody for the ongoing support. Next up, the Chinese economy, and first up for the economy, yesterday, Monday, the State Administration for Market Regulation, China's market regulator, published draft rules and provisions aimed at improving its ability to govern antitrust behavior in anticipation to implementing a revised anti-monopoly law in August. Now, the regulator will seek public comment for its proposals, which will greatly affect, among other sectors, China's massive technology sector, which has suffered under regulatory crackdown for almost 2 years now. The Chinese call this the platform economy. And speaking of the platform economy, in recent days as well, China's top legislative body, the National People's Congress, have approved new provisions that will subject tech giants to more restrictions in competition and raise penalties for their violations. The new regulations stipulate that operators engaging in monopolistic practices that, quote, involve abusing their data, algorithms, technology, or capital advantages, all the rules for online platforms may be banned, end quote. Next up for the economy, Evergrande and the housing crisis. A Samoan Islands registered creditor, Top Shine Global Limited, has filed a lawsuit in Hong Kong demanding the liquidation of China Evergrande Group. The overseas creditor filed the petition with Hong Kong's High Court to wind down China Evergrande. A preliminary hearing is scheduled for the 31st of August, and currently we have no more information about the case. This legal challenge could cause massive headaches for an Evergrande racing to form a restructuring plan for its $300 billion worth of liabilities, $22.7 billion of which is for offshore debts. While local and central government on the mainland have tools to force creditors to take haircuts and SOEs, state-owned enterprises, to buy bad assets from Evergrande, in Hong Kong, legal and market constraints make a blunt political intervention more difficult and potentially damaging. We will continue following this lawsuit in Hong Kong as it proceeds. Now, while we are on the housing sector, UK-based Reuters published a report today with yet another anecdotal example of how desperate some localities have become to shore up their housing sector, especially in poorer, lower-tier cities, where the housing crisis has been most acutely felt. The Reuters piece writes that the southern Chinese city of Yulin is sending officials to neighboring villages to drum up interest in its unsold homes and offering even to help find jobs to those who buy an apartment. Now, this is Yulin in Guangxi, not to be confused with Yulin in North Shanxi. Indeed, on Sunday, domestic outlet The Economic Observer reported that the city of 6 million will recommend a home buyer for more than 3 jobs, hoping to sell 8,000 housing units to villagers this year. It's also been reported that the city's civil servants have been told to persuade their relatives and friends to buy properties to help them meet the target, a sign of true desperation. We remember last week discussing a developer in Henan which has offered to take wheat and garlic as part of the down payment for properties. China's official index that tracks apartment and home sales has now declined for 11 straight months, a record since China created a private property market in the 1990s. Finally, for the economy, some cautiously optimistic news. Preliminary non-official data points suggests that while China's economy has not recovered in June, its crash from the previous 2 months may have finally stabilized. For example, Bloomberg Economics generates the overall activity readings by aggregating a 3-month weighted average of the monthly changes of 8 indicators, which are based on business surveys or market prices. Bloomberg's aggregate index of these 8 early indicators in June returned to the neutral level, that is 4 out of 8 indicators, after deteriorating for 2 straight months. Quote, economic activity picked up in June after financial hub Shanghai lifted its lockdown, allowing businesses to restart and most residents to leave their homes. That can be seen in a rebound in small business confidence, which started growing after contracting for 2 months. End quote. According to economists at Standard Chartered plc, a survey of more than 500 smaller firms showed that demand and production recovered strongly among manufacturing. However, the manufacturing recovery was more significant than services, which remained down. We shouldn't be surprised by this, as we've been following both these sectors closely in recent months, and we have noted a similar trend. While this is good news for the economy, we should keep in mind that this is just a stabilization, not a strong rebound, and China still has sporadic outbreaks, a housing crisis, and a very tough international environment to navigate this year. On top of this, household demand remains very weak. Even if everything goes well, it will take more than a few months of strong growth to undo the damage caused to companies by the lockdowns over the last few months. And of course, we could see more lockdowns if the situation is not managed well going forward. That is today's episode. Thank you so much, everybody. See you tomorrow.